So this talk will be about parenting, but before we go there, I'm gonna tell you guys about a little story. Now this happened yesterday. I have a friend who's going through a little bit of mental health. I don't know what the word is nowadays, but he's having some mental health issues. And he's married, he has a kid, and we were talking. And one of the things I mentioned to him was something what I call patterns. See, a lot of times in life, we repeat things that we don't even know we repeat that aren't the most helpful, aren't the most productive. So, one of the things I talked about from my own life that he started noticing in his life was this tendency to always move around. A lot of you who've watched this channel, you know that when I was a kid, just every 4 years or so, 3 to 4 years, the family would move. It would move. It would move. It would move. And maybe it makes you more worldly, but what I always tell people is being worldly is overrated. It's fun when you first meet someone, but people need to feel a sense of root, right? They need to feel a sense of belonging. They need to feel a sense of community. That's how our brains are built. So a lot of you wonder, why do I stay in LA? I mean, there's a lot of redeeming factors in LA, but you do have to build that habit of, if something's okay, stay put, because nothing's perfect. So don't go somewhere. Don't switch just because you want something perfect. You got to work at what you have. Doesn't mean get stuck in an environment that's obviously bad for you, right? That's the key nuance I hope you guys get from this. So I was telling my friend this, and my friend's like, oh yeah, that's right. Because since he's been married, him and his wife have moved probably every 2 years or so, or even less. And I think his wife wants to move again, and he doesn't want to move, right? Because the kid's happy here, and it's pretty close to home here. So a lot of things going on. I'm not going to talk about my friend, right? Because he confided in me, so I'm not going to go into details. This issue of patterns, what patterns in your own behavior that you might have picked up from childhood that you might not even realize or know about. One of the things, and this is, I don't know if I want to be happy about this or unhappy about this when it comes to the YouTube algorithm, but the YouTube algorithm started recommending me Jordan Peterson videos, of course, right? You click on one of those videos. Of course, I'm a fan of Jordan Peterson, so there's nothing wrong with him. But the issue is you click on one of those videos, and it very quickly leads you down manosphere red pill rabbit holes. So you got to be careful, because you want to live in this world. You don't want to live in a specific subset of society. But anyways, to its credit, eventually, as I started saying, don't recommend this channel, I'm trying to teach the machine how to recommend me stuff. It started recommending stuff based on what's called attachment styles. This is between the infant, the toddler, the kid, and the caregiver, usually the parent, right? There's different types of attachment styles. There's secure attachment style, there's disorganized attachment style, there's avoidant attachment style, there's anxious attachment style. I'm not going to go into what all this stuff means. It's psychology sort of 101 that you can specialize in. The point in this is, as a boy, your relationship with your mother is very, very, and before I keep going, I have to clarify that it's not just your relationship with your mother, it's the bond you formed with your mother and how you formed it with your mother when you're really little. It affects your bonds throughout life, especially from a romantic capacity. So in a weird way, right, Freud with all his craziness was actually right about certain things when it comes to mom and kid, and then the other side too, the whatever dad and the daughter, and then our families are more mixed now, so your caregiver, your stepfather, your stepmother, your 2 mothers, your 3 fathers, whatever our society is now. The point is, a lot of people don't realize these patterns of attachment from their very early childhood. They can affect how they are even when they're 40, they're 50, right? And so much of therapy is to break down a lot of this stuff. So where does this all relate to everything we're talking about? So some of you might remember, I don't remember if I explicitly talked about this in a video, but some of you, if you read the comment section, the pinned comments of some of my videos, you might know that for a while, I had to really distance myself from my family. Like, I blocked my family from contacting me for probably 2 years, going on 3. And it really helped me grow as a person. Last year, I don't remember when, I think my family made an effort. They really wanted to get back into my life again. So I gave it another chance. And they've learned to respect boundaries a little more. The thing about this, and this is why I wanted to make this video, and in a way it's not something attacking my parents or attacking even a specific type of parenting. I've been noticing a specific type of pattern of behavior that even my friend, who's very great friend, he's a very talented, smart guy, he started noticing it himself. So then once I realized this, I realized it's not a parenting issue. It's something even more deeply ingrained. So there's a lot of things going on right now. If you're confused, it's fine. Completely talking without a script right now. So guys, I'm not talking with a script because I realized if I wanted to write a script, I might spend hours trying to go through the details, but instead, let's just try to get the gist. My friend was talking about, he gets depressed sometimes too, right? And if you look at it objectively, he's a good-looking dude. He's got 2 degrees beyond undergrad. You know, don't want to dox him because very few people have that many degrees. Very good profession he has. And so why is he always depressed, right? There's potential genetic reasons we already talked about. There's potentially upbringing reasons, etc. There's maybe lack of vitamin D. But eventually he realizes he goes down these what I call fantasy loops. And he'll think about the future and it'll kind of inspire a lot of thought in him. And he'll keep thinking about what this future can entail. And he might get stuck in this for hours. And then he comes back to reality. He's like, I'm not there yet, or I will never get to that fantasy future. And that gives him a deep low. My kind of analogy to this is when that first Avatar movie came out. And a lot of people left that fantasy theater on the big screen. They got out to the real world. They had depression. It was called Avatar depression. Not the M. Night Shyamalan Avatar. The Avatar that had the blue Smurf people. That was so revolutionary when it first came out in 3D. So imagine that, right? But someone thinking about an iteration or a version of the future that he or she may not or may have. Once I started thinking about my friend and what he told me about this, I started analyzing this pattern that my mom gets into. Because here's what started it this time. I was talking to my mom a few days ago, and she said something. And once she said it, I was like, I'm going to make a prediction. And I'm usually right with my predictions, but I'm not going to say it because I hope that makes it not come true. So my mom said something. She's like, man, sometimes I still wish you were in the medical field. Or I still wish you were a doctor, right? You'd expect Asian parents to say that. And that's why I had to think about this and play this out before I made this video, because I didn't want to make this video about Asian parenting because it's not. I was like, I just know I'm going to get some bullshit from her soon. Today I wake up and I see an email. She's already looking up medical programs for me, and she sent me a text and it's like, let's talk about it tomorrow. And I was like, I knew she was going to do that. I knew she was going to do that. And I didn't say it out loud, but I knew in my mind. It's like, because I'm old enough, I can recognize patterns, right? And last year, when I first let my parents back into my life again, my mom repeated this thing. So as you guys know, I half jumped into the tech field last year. And I'm still in it, but I am focusing more time doing what I love, which is this, right? That's what sometimes you need to try something else to realize you still love this. Last year, my mom did something similar. One time, just like text me, oh my God, I know you're gonna get to Google, and I know you're gonna buy a house in LA. And I had to, last year I told my mom, I'm like, don't infer, because I was busy, so I wasn't contacting her much, so she thought I was angry for some reason too. I told her, I said, don't imply, don't infer, don't start drama, okay? Or else I'm blocking you again. So she didn't do that for a year, and then a year later, she's doing that again. If it were a younger me, I would have thought this is just narcissism, right? But my parents, I don't think they're narcissists. I think if you want to call my parents narcissists, then that takes away the effect, the damage that real narcissists do to people. So I thought about my friend who has this kind of fantasizing loop thing he's been doing since he was forever, and he's learning to kind of get out of. And that's how I realized, okay, so this could actually be the same type of pattern that my mom falls into. But instead of to herself, she does that to her kid, right? I don't know if you call that narcissism. I don't think so. It's something else. So that's what this video is about. Every few years, I guess, she gets into these loops, and she's probably formed them since I was a really little kid, right? Oh, I want my kid to do this. And then she's thinking about the future, deriving a lot of pleasure from, oh, what could happen if the kid does this or that, right? I remember when it was middle school, my mom wanted me to go to magnet school, right? It's a fantasy loop about this about my kid. Then it's college, right? College, different fantasy future loops about what this kid can be, right? Whether in the medical field or in the law field or in the politics field, right? And even in college, it's like different fantasy future loops about where this kid can do with specific career paths. One that I remember was really funny that actually inspired a previous video was when I left ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok. I remember my mom just had this thing set that I was going to go to Alibaba, the company Jack Ma was part of. Who knows where Jack Ma is and how he's doing now in China, but the Communist Party kind of like shoved him down, right? Made him behave. But my mom was just adamant and just had this fantasy about me going to Alibaba, because Alibaba had an American division, and she would just contact me nonstop about it until I made that video, because back then I thought it came from narcissism. So the question then is, why, right? Why does my mom go into these loops, future loops about the kid? And maybe many parents do that, but not to the extent that, let's say, my mom does. Yeah, I don't have an answer to this. I don't have an answer. Maybe it's something related to her upbringing. Maybe it's some unresolved trauma, like she didn't get to really live the life she wanted to do. So something in her fantasy kind of gets in the way, and it kind of makes it so she can't let the kid be. A lot of you probably know this, but I'm a person where at a certain point in life, I just learned to just be present. I'm not too future oriented. Not to say I don't think of basic stuff, right? Like, as you know, I don't FAP. I do no FAP. I do semen retention. So obviously that's a very kind of future oriented thing to think about, right? The benefits of it are amazing if you don't give into current kind of carnal pleasures now. I exercise a lot, right? So like if you weren't future oriented, you wouldn't exercise a lot because you're helping your body stay amazing for a very long time. So it's not that I'm not future oriented. It's just I've learned to turn off that fantasy part or that ruminating part. Similar thing, but not the same thing. I have another friend who's actually been on this channel before. So look at that talk me and him had. He has this thing where instead of like fantasizing about future success or, cool future iterations of himself, he goes towards one sort of philosophical or thing that can't be explained, and he kind of just wonders about it for hours. It's sort of similar to how conspiracy theorists think, but he's not thinking conspiracy theory, so he's not limiting his brain power to that. He's just thinking about whatever is in his head. So if I could draw some kind of analogy or draw in general, this friend of mine is kind of more moving horizontally and just letting his thoughts go this way, right? Certain people, like my other friend that inspired me to think about this, or even my mom, they're maybe letting their thoughts flow forward, right? I like to draw. I like to think spatially. So where are we now? I guess it's just awareness, right? And if you can take anything out of this, think about your own life, think about what you do, And then think about, do you go down certain, I don't know if you call it rabbit holes or whatever, where you just keep thinking, imagining, and almost getting pleasure, for lack of a better word, like doing this, whether with future stuff or with stuff that could be parallel to your present. That's basically it. That's basically it. So think about this for a second. Are there people in your life who do this? Peers, parents even, and if any parents watch my channel, do you do this to your kids or to yourself? Like, are you like, oh yeah, what if my kid wins the basketball championship for his little league when he's 8? And, do you think about stuff like this? It reminds me of one other story. I had this really toxic Indian friend when I was in high school, and apparently even in high school, his mom would always... So now this is more retroactive fantasy type stuff. This is really interesting. I didn't even think about this until we're talking, and this is why I really like to go off script, don't have a script. So his mom would sometimes, many years away, she would have said something like, man, if only you got into this magnet school. That's like past, right? And then you're going backwards and then ruminating, fantasizing. So that's different, right, than the example of my friend or my mom who's thinking in the future, or my other friend who's always in the present but kind of jumping to different non-him type of present kind of thoughts. Think about it, be aware of it, and see if there's any kind of thought patterns like that, especially going into imaginary realms, almost deriving whatever pleasure from the imaginary and not being able to come back. And I don't know what you can do with that dopamine loop or that serotonin loop when you do that, right? So I get a feeling that's why some people play video games, play computer games, or even go online. When you're online, you're a slightly different persona, or in some people, if they go by an alias, they don't show their face. They're really, really different. That's all, guys. Thank you guys for listening. And I will have more talks like this. This was really fun, and it helped me get a lot of thoughts together. I'm not happy with Super Peer right now. There's some issues, but I've been having a lot of fun on there too. So the fun is still outweighing some of the issues. So if you want to look at more of these talks, but more with people, and I'll say more stuff that would be considered quote-unquote unacceptable here on YouTube, feel free to go to Super Peer. Okay, guys, thank you so much.